Hi students, it's time for another week of art, but let's start with Godzilla of the Week. So I'm running out of model kits to find, so I found a toy. This is Shin Godzilla. This is the latest Japanese Godzilla that came out a couple years ago, and he's different and he's cool. He's kind of scary. He's got those little scrawny Tyrannosaurus Rex arms, and he's got this really super long tail. But if you remember all those other Godzillas I show you, you can tell that he's really different. And he hasn't really been this different in a long time. Anyways, you could probably get that movie on Amazon or Google Play, but he's a weird looking Godzilla. He's got that big white eyeball. Focus. Anyways, he's pretty cool. So that's Shin Godzilla. And okay, that's it. So that's it for Godzilla of the Week. So let's get on with the art portion of the video. Hi, remote sixth graders. This is going to be our third week of remote forest trees, part 3 of 3. The first thing you will notice is like, hey, Mr. Smith, that's not your paper, and that doesn't look anything like what we've done. I have a blue paper, I have a cutout. I know. I left my sample at school, and I'm at home making this video, so I just quickly did this so that I could show you what we need to work on today. So your paper, so this is different from your paper. Your paper is like a light blue. Your trees are cut out, like we did them on green paper, and then we cut them out and we glued them on, right? So, and then we did some clouds last week, so we did some clouds. I just quickly put this together so I could show you what we're going to work on today. So mine is different than yours, but yours is fine. Yours looks good. One more thing, though, before we talk about this, let's talk about grading for art, right? So there's only 3 projects I'm going to grade for 6th grade this trimester. The trimester ends February 12th. February 12th, our trimester ends. And there's only three projects I'm grading for 6th grade. So we have the flip book, we have the 3D shoe, and we have this project. So it is essential that you finish all 3 of these. There's only 3. There's not a lot of... doesn't mean we're going to stop. I mean, we're going to work on other things, but there's only 3 things I'm grading this trimester. The flip book, the 3D shoe, and this. So make sure you finish all 3 of them and you send them to me. You can check PowerSchool. You can have your parents check PowerSchool to make sure I have them all. We're still finishing this, so this doesn't have to be done yet. And we have like 5 weeks before the end of the trimester. That's a long time. But I just want to say, make sure if you haven't done your flip book, make sure you start working on that right away. Finish it up. And your 3D shoe, make sure you do that. I have 1 extra 3D shoe printout in the office. There's a folder in there. You can get art supplies. I'll try to make some more if you need them. But you can print out the 3D shoe on paper and then just color it. But you got to send me a picture of it. You have to either send a picture of it or bring it to school, and I'll just collect it before. You got to turn it in before February 12th. So there's only 3 projects. Make sure you finish them. Okay, so let's talk about this. I think I already talked to you about this in the last video. Whatever, don't worry about it. Okay, so for today, we're going to add some trees in the distance. We're going to hint at some trees. You may not have a lot of space. Well, and then we're going to add some ground. Let's add the ground first. So we're going to pick brown. You're going to pick your brown, and you're basically, the ground is not that difficult. It's going to be easy. So we're basically you're just gonna very lightly kind of add these lines. You're just gonna, and what we're doing is we're hinting. We're not like totally drawing the ground, where it's kind of like an impression. It's an impression of the ground, and so we're kind of just we're just kind of shading it in almost, and you can kind of see it almost like fades. It like fades off the edges. That's okay. That's actually pretty good. So you're gonna start. You're gonna have like you have a cutout here, so that it probably might run into that. That's okay. So I'm kind of like, you can kind of go a little bit here, here, and we're using these oil pastels, right? This is brown. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want it to be a little darker underneath the tree. Like you can imagine a shadow kind of coming down. So it's like a little darker. So see how like I'm pressing down a little harder. So like this is like the lightest I can do. I'm like barely marking it. And then here it's like a little darker. It's kind of like a shadow. So it's kind of like you can imagine it kind of connects to that. So it's like a shadow. You're like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good. Mine might look better because this is pastel as well. Yours might not look as, it's okay. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look as good. Notice I'm not going all the way to the edge of the paper. That's fine. That's good. And then we can kind of make the top a little darker, darker, darker. Okay. So basically I kind of shade it on the bottom, and we're basically hinting at, it's like an impression. It's an impression of the ground. Now let's try to add some green. Let me do it first and see if it looks good. Just a little. You don't want to add a lot of this. We just, like, I'm barely, like, here, I'll flip it over. I'm, like, just barely doing it. I'm not, like, pressing down really hard, right? It's just kind of like, I'm just very lightly adding it. Yeah. You don't want to add it everywhere either. There's, like, a lot of dirt, so I'm just kind of adding a little bit of green here and there. There. Now, in the classroom, we had like paint and we were kind of stipling it. I'm not sure we can do that very well here. I think, let's see. I don't know. You can add some marks to represent bushes or some grass. Notice how I didn't really go up. I don't know, up's kind of weird. Like, if you go up, it's too obvious. But, you know, it doesn't really matter if it looks good. This looks kind of weird. Let's see. Just trying to hint at it. Maybe add a little bit of brown in there. Basically, I'm trying not to overdo it. I don't know, that's a hard lesson to learn, though. But whatever, we just added some shading, and it was light at first, and then it was a little darker kind of underneath the tree. It's kind of like a shadow. Here, I could have done it like this too. Like this could have been darker. I don't know. Whatever. That looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is, right now we only have 2 trees, but we want to add some other trees in the distance, kind of like to represent a forest, right? And you may not have very much space to draw them. So like we're going to draw them like in the spaces that we have, but like maybe your tree, I don't know, you may not have any space over here. If you don't, try to fit them in, or you know, you don't have to do like a whole tree here. You can do like part of a tree, right? But I have a little bit of space to add some trees here. So I'm going to add like half a tree here, try to add a tree here, and then another half of a tree over here. Now, I'm going to use this dark green, but you may not have this dark green. I may have sent home a green that's not as dark as this. That's okay. Just use whatever. Don't use the light green. I mean, not yet, right? Use the darker green. So like you either have the dark green or like a medium green, like a green that's a little lighter than this. Don't use this one yet. I mean, unless this is all you have, but hopefully you have something like this. Okay, so what are we going to do? Just like the ground, we're going to hint at trees in the distance. We're not going to like fully, like these are fully rendered, right? These are like solid, they're in the foreground, they're very noticeable. But we're going to hint at another tree. And it's not going to be as tall as these trees either. It's going to be kind of like up to here. Right? So I'm just going to kind of hint at that tree. And depending on how much space you have, hopefully you can fit it. You want to try to fit in some, like, I don't know, some marks. But see, I could barely fit that tree in there. And then it's going to kind of come down to here. And then kind of like I'll probably use like a light brown for that like tree trunk. Right? So like I'm hinting at it. It's kind of like a sketch. It's like a sketch almost. Okay. This one, I don't even have room for a full tree. So I'm just going to do like kind of like part of a tree. It's going to be kind of like coming in. Right? And I go, oh yeah, that's it. Like that's, now if you have a little more room, great. Maybe you can fit like a bigger tree like this. But all I have room is just for this like little spot. So that's cool. That's okay. I'm going to put the bottom of it here and then maybe kind of put like the tree trunk. So it's not like you're sketching it in kind of. Now I do have some room over here. So I definitely have a little bit of room. So again, I'm going to, remember these aren't as tall as the other trees. Why? Because they're in the distance. In the distance, they get kind of short, closer to the ground. I don't know. That's the easiest way to describe it simply. Okay, so here we go. So here I have a little more room, so I want to really kind of sketch it in here. Wow. Boy. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of do... Okay, so I'm kind of hinting at those trees. And what it's going to... Already it looks kind of interesting. It's kind of like, it's like, oh... And I talk about this a lot. I talk about like this optical illusion in your brain. Your brain looks at a picture, and your brain has to think about a lot of things. And it looks at this picture, and it doesn't want to. Your brain actually doesn't want to think that hard because it's thinking about everything, right? Like stuff you don't even think about it's thinking about. And so it looks at this picture, and it's like, okay, we've got trees in the foreground. Oh, there's trees in the background. Okay. Oh, they're like lighter in color. There must be a fog. Now, your brain's not totally thinking that, but it's like, it looks there and like, oh, there's trees in the distance. Like, they don't look real, but I don't care. Like, your brain doesn't want to worry about all that stuff. So what we're going to do, though, is we are going to make it like atmospheric. Like, there's like fog in the way. They're in the distance. They're not as bright. They're not as saturated as the trees in front. So we are going to add a little bit of shading, like, kind of like on the bottom, but see how it's light? Like I didn't press down very hard. And notice that the marks in my trees in the foreground are darker. So I'm going to put like another mark here, even though like I can't see, like that's kind of like there's like parts of your tree. Like this is that second part. It's like the shadow. And your mind, and these are just some lines. They're kind of like they're sketch lines basically. But again, your mind kind of puts it together and it's like, oh yeah, whatever. It's like in the distance. This is like a power that artists have, is that we can hint, we make a suggestion, a hint at something in the distance, or an impression. An impression is probably the better, more accurate thing. It's like an impression. It's an impression of that tree. And your brain is okay with it. Your brain is like, okay, well, that's cool. That's good enough. Like the brain is like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to think about that. Like your brain is regulating your breathing, your heart rate, and like you're not even thinking about that. It's thinking about all kinds of things. It's crazy. Okay, so now I do want to add a little bit of this green, not a lot. Remember, there's going to be a lot of white like in these trees because they don't want to be very saturated. They're very light. They're like in the distance. So there's a lot of like, it's like they're like a pale tree almost. So here there's like, I'm going to add some of this light. This is my lighter green. And again, I'm not pressing down very hard. Now, your drawing might be different because you may not have a lot of space. Maybe you just have a little bit. Maybe you can only see a tip in the middle here, but you have more space over here to draw a tree. That's fine. I mean, whatever you can do, try your best. I mean, every picture is going to be different because your tree, you might have a really big, wide trees and maybe you only have a little bit of space like this on this side. So don't worry if it doesn't look like mine. we just want to add some of these. We want to add some of these trees in the background as much as you can see. Maybe you have a lot of space and you can really like put another tree in there. That's fine. When I do my marks, you'll notice that I'm kind of going up. So it kind of looks like the tree. It makes it look like the tree branches are going down. I guess I could go down too, I guess. Yeah. It's kind of funny. I went up and I probably should have gone down. But you don't want to go left and right is the point, I guess, right? Okay, that's pretty good. Now, I want to add a little bit of brown because like I just kind of I roughed these. But now remember, not as dark as this, right? It probably won't be as dark because this is like a cutout on your paper. But again, I'm just going to add, I'm hinting at the brown. Like I just hinted at, so I got a little bit of brown here, a little, cut some spaces there. There. Here I barely have a little bit of room, but that's really, okay. Okay, so that looks pretty good. See, now it's looking more like trees in the distance. Like in atmosphere, when things are in the distance, they usually get more gray. And we've kind of talked about this. We talked about this on our alligator postcard. Things in the distance, if it's like an orange background, they'll be kind of orangish. It's like the atmosphere light kind of changing the color. Your paper is like a light blue, so your trees are kind of mixing in with the blue, and that'll look good. It'll look like they're kind of mixing in with that atmosphere. My paper's white because I forgot my blue paper. So sorry about that. But anyways, so now the trick is, do we add a little bit more to these trees? Here's the trick. This looks pretty good, but you want to maybe add a little bit. The trick is not to go too much. Too much meaning you don't want it to be too solidly, you don't want it to be too dark. That's too much. You don't want it to be too dark. But I can add, but it's almost too light right now. You're like, oh my gosh, Mr. Smith, how do you know if it's too dark? Well, you can add a little more. So it depends on how dark you drew it to begin with. Maybe you drew it darker than I did, and so maybe you don't need to do what I'm adding. So I'm going to add a little more darkness to the edge, but not everywhere. So like I'll add a little bit here. Notice I don't even go to the tip. Let's see, I'm going to go kind of like almost to the tip, right? Maybe add a little bit here. So it's a little darker, but not too dark. I just want it to be a little, see how like these, you're like, oh yeah, that looks a little better than that one. This one's too faint. It's too pale. This one's a little better. Maybe I can add a couple more marks in here that are a little darker. The fact that like these are going to be solid green because they're on paper, and then these are kind of on the blue. Yeah, you can definitely add a little more. Like it won't be too bad. And if it gets a little too dark, it's okay. I just, it's hard for a learning student to know exactly how much is too dark, right? Like I said, it'll probably be okay because these are going to be so dark because they're on dark paper, and then this is going to be on blue. So you probably can't, it'd probably be hard to mess it up. Okay, there, so I made it a little darker. Well, I think I can add a little more green. Maybe get a little darker with some of these lines. It would have looked better if it had that blue. And then I'm going to add a teeny bit more brown in here. Not like, just a little more, just a little more. Yeah, okay, that's it. So, looks nice, right? But again, yours is on like a bigger, bluer paper. This is a smaller white paper just so I can show you on my camera. You already did clouds last week, and that's it. So that's it. That's pretty good. So you want to, when you're finished with this, you want to turn it into me. You can take a picture of it and upload it to Canvas. You can just drop it off at school. Like if there's a drop off and pick up, you can, for 6th grade, you can just drop off all your artwork, or you can have a parent. I have a folder in the office where your parent can just put your artwork in. For me, it's a little art box folder. It's like an art box folder. And there's a green folder in there that it says like, turn in homework, and they just put it in there. You can turn it in that way. But the most important thing is, make sure your name is on the back of this. So put your name on the back. Use pencil. Use pencil because this will smear. And then put the letter of your teacher. So like if you're in Vanderkirk, VK, and circle it. If you're in Corver, K, circle it. Vanderdusen, VD, Woodhead, W, circle it. That way it'll help me I can only say it so many times, but it helps me figure out like how to organize your work. But that's it. So this is one of the 3 projects we have to turn in. Don't forget the flip book and don't forget the 3D shoe. And then we still got some time, so we'll start some new projects soon, and they'll be for the next trimester. So in the meantime, though, there'll probably be a week off next week, so I'll have some practice next week. We'll practice something, and then it won't be long. But get caught up on your other artwork. Okay, so just make sure everything's finished so you get like an awesome grade in my class. I don't want it to anyone to mess up and not get a good grade, because there's not a lot of artwork to do to get it. So that's it for today. Have a good week, and I'll have a video next week, even though we don't have a lot to do. So we'll have a little practice video to work on. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.